All right, guys, we are going to be going through the Philadelphia Eagles here today. This is our Eagles preview. And, of course, it'll be just like the Broncos one. We'll go through the roster, we'll go through the team, we'll go through all the intangibles, all that fun stuff. And then we'll go through the schedule, and we'll have a future bet at the end of the video as well. So why don't we go ahead and jump right on into it. We can start with the coaching staff. Sirianni comes back as coach. Been coach for a couple of years now. Has himself a Super Bowl ring, all that fun stuff. And Sirianni's style is a bit unique, but gets extra points for the way they run their fourth down stuff. All the way they do all that stuff is just a gigantic boost to win probability, and that comes from his decision making. So despite the fact that he has a few little quirks here and there, he's still a very good coach in the ways that matter. Yeah, not much more to say there. Offensive coordinator, a new guy, Kevin Patullo. This is an interesting one. He's been around for a while, never really made that jump up. No real, I don't want to say reason for it, but the ability's always been there, it seems, and everything like that. So we'll see what happens here. Obviously, new coordinator once again, we can talk about coordinator when we move down to Hurts in a minute, but a new coordinator once again, our fifth in like 6 years or something like that. And that's what happens when the team is good and the offense performs well. You keep moving coordinators in, keep moving coordinators out. Kellen Moore jumped ship. I wasn't super high on Kellen Moore. So while I can't say it's a necessary upgrade, I don't think it may be a large downgrade, if anything like that. So we'll end up seeing. And then Vic Fangio comes back at DC. Did a really good job last time and continues to do a good job. And I imagine we'll do more good work here in the future. There's a lot we'll talk about with the defense, some moving parts in there and stuff like that. But for the moment, a very good DC, a very good head coach, and a new offensive coordinator in a position that I thought could be upgraded. So hopefully that's an upgrade there for the Eagles. But let's jump into the roster here. We'll start with quarterback. Tanner McKee is the backup. Not much more we can say about Tanner. He's fine. He is what it is for a backup quarterback. Jalen Hurts. I'm not a top 5, top 3 Jalen Hurts guy. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people don't like that. It's just what it is, guys. And it's not because the team is good around him, but the team around him probably makes him look a little bit better than he is. And again, he's my 9th best quarterback. Yes, I know he won the Super Bowl. I know the Eagles won the Super Bowl, guys. That doesn't make a top 3 quarterback. There are plenty of crappy quarterbacks that win Super Bowls. That shouldn't be a mark on individual talent in a game that plays 50 guys on each side every game. So it's nothing crazy. I like Jalen. Again, he's a comfortable top 5, top 10 guy for me. I don't think there's an argument that he isn't top 10. I don't personally think there's an argument that he's top 5, though. And there are some things he could definitely work on. His sack percentage is really bad. And this depends on how you feel, I guess. Sack is a QB stat to me for the most part. And Hurts does take a lot of bad sacks, and bad sacks tend to kill drives. They're drive killers, so they mean a lot more just in general. Success rate, just average on early downs in terms of passing, which is also something that not good. Behind the sticks, normally that stuff tends to regress as a whole. Like, how do I explain it? The best example was CJ Stroud last year and the year before. First year, offensive coordinator, Slowick, lots of early runs on first and second down and a lot of third and longs, and Stroud got them out of that. Last year, Stroud takes a slight step back and the offense stops working, despite the fact that most of it was mostly the same. A lot of early 1-2 runs on early downs, a lot of 3rd and 7s, a lot of 3rd and 8s. And eventually that stuff kind of catches up to you. And again, I'm not saying Hurts is a bad quarterback, but Hurts puts the team in positions sometimes that aren't favorable. And despite the fact that they get out of it a lot, or despite the fact that they won the Super Bowl and things like that, doesn't make them a good quality to have as a quarterback. And again, I like Hurts. I don't know how else I want to explain it. He's my 9th best quarterback here. He doesn't have the arm strength. He doesn't have the like the high end ceiling that you get out of a Josh Allen or a Mahomes or a Burrow or anything like that. Hurts is a top 10 quarterback, and that's probably just where he's going to be, and that's all right there. But again, perfectly fine for the system. Has a really good floor with the running. Obviously, you saw what happened to the offense a little bit last year when he was going through that thing with his thigh or his hamstring or his knee. I forgot which it was, but when he doesn't have the ability to run, it obviously takes a step off, just like any running quarterback there. But having a fully healthy Hurts obviously raises the ceiling for the offense just in his ability to run the football. But again, Hurts, good quarterback, top 10 guy, and a Super Bowl winner. Running back, Saquon Barkley. He's my best running back in terms of rankings. I believe he's the best running back. And putting him behind a really good offensive line last year, and you can see what he does. That whole running back debate, I thought Saquon kind of proved my side of it, which was having a really good running back on a bad football team does not help anything. Having a really good running back on a really good football team with a really good offensive line, that's when it takes a step up. And I still don't think that bad football teams should be signing running backs to $20 million deals. Good football teams, if you have the space, go for it and you see what happens. But Saquon, behind a really, really good offensive line with his ability to break tackles, still has the speed, all that fun stuff makes him the top running back. After Saquon, it's a little bit, you got Will Shipley, you got A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon was someone who was getting a ton of touches on the Packers 2 years ago, and I couldn't wrap my mind around it, and now he's kind of like the 2B or third running back here in Philadelphia, and that's kind of where I think he is in terms of a player. Again, don't love it after Barkley, and Barkley coming off a lot of touches. You kind of want to give him a little bit of rest here and there, perhaps going forward. And Saquon's not injury prone, but he's had a history with a few nagging things here and there. So doing your best to kind of split carries would probably be best for the team going forward into the playoffs, that sort of thing. But again, don't love the depth here. I'm going to say that a lot, and it's going to sound like I don't particularly like the team too much, and I don't want it to sound like that. The top line of this team is really, really good, but a lot of it is kind of like this running back room where the top end is, the number one guy is really, really good. Second, third, fourth guy, not so much. And we can see it in another room here. We'll go to wide receiver, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, the 1-2 here. A top end 1-2. A.J. Brown's really good, getting up there a little bit and all that, but still an excellent wide receiver. Devontae Smith is a high end number 2 as well. And you can kind of, like, if you're running ones out of a slot, like, he'd be one of those guys. But again, a really high end 1 and 2 here. And then it falls off really quickly on Dotson, Johnny Wilson, Terrace Marshall. There's some names on there you don't want to hear, particularly when we're talking about wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. Like, those are really not good names. And look, obviously they spent a lot of money in a variety of different places, and you can't spend money anywhere or everywhere. But this, the wide receiver room, again, you get an injury to A.J. Brown here, and you're running Devontae Smith out there with Jahan Dotson and Terrace Marshall, and it's not good. But again, the top end, really, really good. The depth, not so much. Tight end, pretty good. Dallas Goedert, still a top 10-ish guy. He's sort of declined a little bit last year, and maybe he's just declining overall in general, but is still top 10 guy. And another weapon for Hurts. And then Grant Calcaterra, who's pretty solid too, and that's kind of it. Not much to say on the tight end room. Again, you have a good tight end there, Goddard, and then you have a good 2, and that's kind of all you can ask for out of your tight end room. Offensive line. This is my number 2 offensive line. I have it behind the Broncos, and I know some people were kind of upset with that, but while they were really, really good last year, especially run blocking, you have a new guy at right guard, Tyler Steen comes in for Becton. You've got 2 tackles who are really, really good. I want to say this, really, really good. Both of them are top 5, 6, 7 at their position for sure. But getting a little bit older, and Mailata and Lane Johnson. Cam Jurgens comes in at center, was all right. Landon Dickerson was pretty good as well. But just separating them from the Broncos up top. Broncos interior, top run blocking unit, top pass blocking unit, just across the line in general. And, as I said, this is a really good line, but you have an unknown at right guard for the most part. And just an interior that's just not quite as good as the Broncos one. And you get to, I know we're splitting hairs here, and it feels like we're splitting hairs, but we're splitting hairs for the top team in football last year, and this is my number 2 team coming into the season this year, and we're just splitting hairs from what they were last year is all. I don't want to come into our previews and just say, hey, everybody's really good and go on. That's no fun. And we're just kind of talking our way through things. So again, a really good offensive line, question mark in quotations at right guard with Steen after Becton leaves. And again, normally on a really good offensive line, when there are 5 really good pieces, if one pops out and one pops in, you don't tend to notice, especially on the interior. So even if Tyler Steen has a really bad year, this should still be a really, really good offensive line. But again, talent everywhere. And again, we talk about Patullo a little bit, new offensive coordinator. And normally when an offense is really good and a new coordinator comes in, normally things don't change a ton. I expect Patullo to kind of just take the things they did well and add on to it. And again, I wasn't a huge fan of Kellen Moore personally. So I actually think there's some upside here in terms of play calling and things like that. We'll see again, but it's a really good unit. Offensive line's really good. Quarterback's really good. Running backs good, thin. Wide receivers really good, thin. And tight ends in a good spot as well. So a very talented roster up and down on the offensive side. Defensive side, there were a couple of more things in and out here, but I think a couple of more places where they just push young talent in, and it's just a good move that way. Defensive line, very good last year. They lose 2 players, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat. Williams, I think, is a bit more replaceable. You have Ojami come in, come in, and he's a 3rd-year guy. We'll see. Again, there are a couple of changes, as we can say. He comes in, hopefully it'll be all right. Davis comes in, should start. There are a couple of players on the outside that will go where Sweat was. Again, Sweat was someone I liked but wasn't super, super high on. So I don't think, even if it's a downgrade to Ojulari, even if it's a downgrade to Hunt, even if it's a downgrade to Uche, I don't think it's some giant step back. And this was a top-end D-line last year. We're talking like top 3 or 4, 8th overall in pass rush win rate, 3rd overall run stop win rate. So just overall, the offensive line was really good. And I understand you're replacing 2 guys, but again, not super high on Sweat. And, Nolan Smith comes in, Ojulari comes in, Uche comes in. They're all probably talented enough to find 8 sacks between them, that type of stuff. And again, not necessarily building, you're not necessarily aggregating Josh Sweat that way. But again, we're looking at just need a couple of guys to come in and produce enough to kind of just keep that fall off from really, really dropping off. And again, I think Davis can do that. I think those 3 guys can do that. We'll see with Ojami. So while it's a top 2 or 3 D-line last year, and it's missing a new guy or 2, I don't think the losses are as gigantic as they say. There's a lot of talent here, a lot of young talent, and plenty of upside with the defensive line. Linebacker, this is the top unit in the NFL, probably by a bit of margin. Zach Bond last year was the best linebacker in the NFL. Eye test said that, and every statistic you can probably find said that. PFF likes him there. Probably the best linebacker in the NFL last year. Nakobe Dean was also very good. Top 10 to 15 type of linebacker last year. He has his injury problems and things, and you know, you don't want to lose that kind of player, obviously, to an injury or anything like that, Nakobe Dean. But they draft Jihad Campbell in the first round, so now you have talent there back up. Now you can argue with, you know, what you should spend draft capital on in the first round. I'm not a big linebacker in the first round kind of guy, but again, for what this is, we're just looking at what the players are on the piece of paper, what the players are going to be on the field, and having the best linebacker and a top 15 linebacker and a first round linebacker is a pretty good unit. So yeah, our top linebacking unit in the NFL. And then secondary. Secondary hit pretty well last year. They hit well on Cooper DeJean. They hit well on Quinyon Mitchell. Lose a couple players, so the starting three is probably going to be Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and then whoever wins the battle between Adoree Jackson and Kelee Ringo. So that second QB spot might be, you know, a bit iffy. But the secondary as a whole should be really good. Reed Blankenship comes in, continues to play well, played well last year. Sidney Brown will come in, or Makuba, the guy they drafted to come across from him. So in the second round, normally early round, top 3 round safeties are good players pretty much out the gate. We'll see, of course. And again, Sidney Brown's okay, played some snaps last year and should jump in. So if they get the safety spot, then you're kind of just worried about CB2. And normally I would say Ringo or Adoree Jackson are good enough to just hold their own, which when you have excellent QB play or cornerback play in the slot, excellent cornerback play on the 1, you can kind of hide CB2 a little bit. You can kind of hide your free safety a little bit. So it's one of those things, if you have a good pass rush also, and they don't have to guard as much, or they don't have to cover as much, all that stuff helps. So if the rest of the defense is still very good, you can hide Kelee Ringo, you can hide Adoree Jackson, even though they're probably good enough to hold their own for a decent amount of snaps, you can still kind of hide it a little bit over in the corner. So it should be a really good secondary again. It should be a really good defense again. It's really well coached. And again, they lost pieces, but for the most part, they've been replaced with talent that's just a bit younger and may need to grow into it a little bit. And I expect the defense to get better as the season goes along. But other than that, I expect this to still be a top 10 defense going into the new year. Now, we can talk about the schedule. Dallas opening night, obviously. Raining in the new year, Banner night, all that fun stuff. As always, a good spot for the home team. And then at Kansas City, home to the Rams, at Tampa Bay, home to Denver. Now, this is a tough stretch just in terms of on paper. That Kansas City spot, while it is on the road, isn't a horrible spot. Kansas City spend their first weekend. They play the day after the Eagles, so the Eagles will have a rest day, an extra rest day. And Kansas City are going to come back from Brazil. So it's a pretty decent spot. It's about as good as a spot as at Kansas City's ever really going to get. You get the Rams at home, which were comfortably better than last year. At Tampa Bay, which always tends to give the Eagles problems. And then you got Denver at home, which, they're still got a sophomore quarterback, and should be a defensive battle, but should be a little bit fun. And then before the bye, you get at Giants, at Minnesota, home to the Giants. You're looking to sweep the Giants as a Giants fan. Normally that's what happens with the Eagles. And then at Minnesota will be tough. So again, the schedule's not easy. It's not an easy schedule. That's what normally happens when you win the division. You end up with these tough schedules. And then out of the bye, at Green Bay, home to Detroit, at Dallas. It's tough again. At Green Bay is going to be difficult. Detroit at home will be difficult. At Dallas, again, you're hoping to sweep. You're hoping to win 4 or 5 games here in the division. Chicago at home should be winnable. At the Chargers, home to Las Vegas. Vegas should be winnable. At the Chargers will be tough, but winnable. And then the last 3 games, a lot of things could happen. You play Washington twice. You go at Washington, at Buffalo, home to Washington to end the season. Now, I think there'll be games you'll be needing to win or needing to play at least here. I don't expect the Eagles to run away considering what the schedule is and considering how thin some of the line is. again, we're talking one injury somewhere could really change the trajectory of the team for the season. So I expect the Eagles to be playing back toward the end there, but it's a Washington team that they've beaten multiple times recently. It's a Washington team that'll still have defensive problems most likely, and a Buffalo team whose schedule and division and all that fun stuff lines up so that they may not even be playing week 16 or week 17 there. So we may get a little bit lucky, but again, they're all winnable. Every game is winnable for the Eagles. There are some tough games here. I don't expect them to run away with the division. I think Washington are going to be good this year. Dallas maybe with like a little resurgence here may be tough. And again, there are some tough spots here at Green Bay, Detroit at home, at Minnesota, at Tampa Bay is always tough, at Kansas City. You get the Rams at home, that sort of stuff. So the schedule's not super easy. I don't expect anyone to run away with anything. In terms of just long-term stuff, I'd prefer, instead of playing it early, considering the depth in some of the spots on the offense, I would prefer, like if I were like Eagles Super Bowl, I want it later on in the season. Just want to make sure they're healthy, that kind of stuff. We bet Eagles Super Bowl last year on this exact video. That came through for us nicely, but we don't have Eagles Super Bowl this year. Our play is the Eagles to score a TD in every game at -160. That is a $2.75 bet for us. Barring like a Hurts injury and or like Saquon to go along with AJ Brown type stuff, the way they just play the game in terms of one splitting, like it's very difficult to like key in on one thing when you're playing the Eagles. The running game is so good, the quarterback can run, the wide receivers are so good on the top. The way they call plays, the way they're aggressive in the red zone, the way they're able to just automatically grab themselves a first down on a 4th and 1, and the fact that they do go for it on 4th down when they're supposed to, all that stuff leads me to think that they're going to score a TD in every game. They scored a TD in every game last year. Again, the schedule has some tough games here, but in terms of tough defenses, you get Denver at home, Green Bay on the road, Buffalo maybe on the road, and LA Chargers on the road, but everywhere else you should probably be scoring at least a touchdown here. So we like that. Eagles to score a touchdown in every game. -160. That was a $2.75 bet for our $1 to $1 million challenge, guys. So that is the Philadelphia Eagles. And tomorrow we'll have a new team, or the day after. We still have plenty of time to get all these done. We'll see. And yeah, the Eagles are done.